audience.
Hello, friends.
Hello. Okay. Do you watch the Olympics? Do any of you watch the Olympics?
Of course.
Do you like the Olympics?
Yeah.
I've actually heard Adam once say he's a big Olympics guy.
Big Olympics guy.
Have you
Big
ever
Olympics
thought
guy.
of becoming an Olympian yourself?
No.
Actually, yeah, I've always
Every
wanted to
day of
be,
my life.
I've always wanted to do curling.
Well,
That's the one you would pick?
Well, I think it's the one that
Curling?
I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, that's true.
well, see,
and that's
where
not to
you're-
discount.
Hold on, Allie. We're not ready for the end. I think that handball is the one that I think if you really spent like your life trying to be good at, you could. Nobody's practicing handball in the off season, which is 4 years long.
The 4 year off. I don't know. I don't want to discount the athletes that do curling, but I just feel like I've always been a touch player in all of my sports anyway, so I think I would have the touch.
I wasn't really trying to ask you guys. I was
Well, you
just
gotta
trying
tell
to
us when you have
read
rhetorical
it.
questions.
But anyways,
People like to answer
USA
questions.
Weightlifting is looking for their next 2024 Olympian.
True.
And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
could
right.
be you. You might think I'm crazy, but hear me out. USA Weightlifting is a transitional athlete program. What I mean by this is they've given hundreds of athletes an opportunity to continue their athletic careers following retirement of football or any other sport that they may have not received a scholarship for or were planning on pursuing for their future. USA Weightlifting gives so many athletes the opportunity to represent their country on the biggest stage possible. Check out their transitional program today to learn more about how you could become the next USA Weightlifting Olympian. Go to www.usawrecruiting.com. Well, let's start the show. You really don't think you'd be able to do USA Weightlifting?
I just feel like I want to pick my battles here. It's like going into like fall of my freshman year of high school. It was like, all right, do I play football or do I play golf? I'm better at golf, so I went with golf, and that's why I would go with curling over weightlifting.
Okay, well.
Sound logic. I buy that.
Well, you were a star wide receiver, weren't you, in high school?
Star was a word that that was your word, not mine. I was a decent wide receiver in high school, yes, and defensive back, but I couldn't handle the physical part of football, which is
that's
a big part of it.
That
yeah.
is a very big part.
Good speed, good hands, folded like a wet paper towel when anyone ran into me. So that
I'd like to
didn't
see
go
the
very
matchup
far.
between you and Zach, who also was a wide receiver / defensive back in his day.
Yeah. My side-to-side quickness is not what it once was. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Zach's staying in shape.
Oh, yeah.
You could say that.
Yeah, so.
Zach could do the USA weightlifting thing.
He could.
Let's get him involved.
All right. Well, this is the Denver Sports Podcast brought to you by the one and only best beer in the world, Breckenridge Brewery, our favorite beers. I've got Ryan Koenigsberg here, AJ Hafley, Drew Kriesman, and Adam Martes. We also have Andre Simone on the board and Kale on the live stream. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic.
I mean, so
Cloud nine.
Adam told us he was going to get a little spicy on this podcast, so I'm going to warn you guys. You're excited for this one, aren't you?
How could I not be? What's not to be excited about? This was a great week.
It was a great weekend for Colorado sports in general. Since our last podcast, the Avs and the Nuggets went 2-0. Buffs football won a game.
Hell
Big.
yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of recruits for Buffs football.
Buffs basketball.
Buffs basketball won a game too. So
Neither the Broncos or Rockies lost.
There we go. The Rams were on a bye. The Rams played.
Oh, Rams, yeah.
Rams basketball played Duke, and they lost. But I mean, it's Duke.
Hey, they kept it within 50.
There we go.
Good for them.
I
Did they-
mean,
did they
that's
really?
what-
They did.
Good for them.
yeah.
I don't know what the spread was, but they lost by 44.
So I mean, there we give them a little bye on that. But let's start off with the Avs. They have outscored their opponents 13-6 during this 2-game homestand. AJ, we haven't had you on this pod for a while. What did you think of that bounce-back performance after losing 5 straight games?
I mean, what can you say about the 9-4 win against Nashville, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most exciting thing that's happened in Pepsi Center for the Avalanche in a long time. Just in terms of like a single game, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? You know, game 82 against St. Louis, game 3 against Calgary. Those are all memorable things that have happened in the last couple of years. But
You were expecting it to be a big night.
right, dropping 9 on Nashville when half of your team is hurt and You're playing your backup
And you
goalie.
had scored 2 goals in
and-
the last 3 games.
Right, and offensively, you hadn't scared anybody in a week and a half. And then you just score 6 goals in 8 minutes, and everything absolutely works for you. And not a lot of cheap goals either. I think there was really only 1 goal that I was like, ugh, that's not great. But after that, I mean, it was just beating goaltenders.
What do you mean that a goal wasn't great?
Well,
It's the goalie's fault.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
like the I wish we had a clip of it, but like the Ryan Graves knuckle
The long
puck.
distance shot.
Yeah,
Okay.
where you're like the goalie's not screened. It's not particularly well placed. It's not like 110 miles an hour where you're like, oh, I physically can't see that. It was just kind of like a lot of guys at beer league would have stopped that. Like that is not an impressive not an impressive goal for NHL standards. And then, you know, a couple of those goals were obscene where you're just like, okay, I mean this is hockey porn, right? Like this is the good stuff.
Donskoy spinny goal.
Yeah,
got,
I mean,
got the whole thing
Yeah.
started, and that
I'm-
was a gorgeous play.
I mean, the Burakovsky one.
Wow,
I'm
it's a guy.
the world's biggest sucker for like dudes coming down the wing and just picking a corner where a goaltender can't do anything about it.
Like when Kale dropped down to a knee
Like
on the next
physically,
night.
yeah. Well, that's the one that I did the film breakdown on. That's up on the site right now because you watch it from end to end, and it was just like, this is the best that the sport has to offer. Like, if you ever want to know how goals are created in hockey, that film breakdown is a great example of how it takes a whole team to create offense. And because I think 7 guys were involved in that. They had line change halfway through it where it was just like, oh, guys are hopping onto the ice and making magic happen. So, you know, the Nashville game, a lot of fun, but the Columbus game, I think, was even more important just because your whole team is hurt and you still find a way to win games, and you answer a 5-game losing streak by winning 2 of the 2 games you have at home before you have another long road trip.
And it was the Kale McCarr show against the Blue Jackets
Which
with
was
2
great.
goals.
He's, you know, got NHL's 3rd star of the week. Pretty well earned. 3 goals, 3 assists in 3 games. So,
I read something that he's tied in points with Sidney Crosby.
yeah.
Better
Wow.
already.
How
Yeah.
much of the turnaround here has been X's and O's, better execution of plays, and how much of it has been we were sick and tired of getting kicked around? These last 5 games have been terrible because there was a different level of energy in that second period. Like, of course there is when you score 6 goals in a period.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how much of it really was just a mental power of will thing?
Some of it always is, right? Like you're not going to fall backwards into 6 goals in 8 minutes. You're not going to fall backwards into a blowout. You don't just like show up and like, oh well, we happen to just drop 9 goals tonight. You know, like it doesn't work that way. It's the first time Nashville in their entire history has given up 9. By the way,
Wow.
so
Wow.
that maybe that could be their next banner that they put up there.
Ooh.
And
Spicy.
Spicy.
they, you know, honestly, some of it was execution, some of it was just like it's just your night, and some of it is willpower. You know, they give up the goal, and to be honest, I think some of it is Matt Duchene. He gets that 3rd goal, puts them in the lead, and I think there are certain guys on that bench that they were just not here for that.
Yeah. Not
They-
like this.
Yeah, it was very much like this. Nope, not happening. Like, you're not coming in here. You're not going to celebrate like that in front of us and in this building. And after what you've done, like, nope, not going to happen. I think there's very much a motivation there from guys who played with him to not let him succeed in Pepsi Center.
I absolutely love that. Like, I love that
I-
so much.
I wish I could tell full stories about the end of that saga and the drama and like some of the because that's very personal for some of those guys.
That's
They
how I-
absolutely just are not interested. I don't think it was a coincidence that Nathan McKinnon was superhuman that night. That, you know, Duchene comes out there and McKinnon was just like, this is not happening. He has, you know, McKinnon had not had more than 2 points in a game all season, and then Duchene gives them a 3-2 lead, and he has a 4-point night.
As
And
a-
doesn't even have to play the 3rd period, like the ultimate hockey strut.
Yeah,
See ya.
Doesn't even need to come out.
that
for
is
the
a
3rd.
strut, man.
Like he's just like, We'll see you next time, guys.
As I always say on the DNVR Broncos podcast, if you want to hear some good Deshane stories, you might have to show up to an Avs watch party and buy AJ a couple drinks.
It's true.
I'm gonna have to hear those
Dude,
stories.
it's
I'm gonna
true.
have to do that. Didn't we see something? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it was kind of a week for star players in Denver, like taking it to the next level based on the competition. Right? Is it Jokic? I felt like we saw a similar thing where, all right, everyone's talking trash, and yeah, it's been this way, but I see who's across from me now, and let me remind everybody just who in the hell I am.
Well, it's funny because I think everybody sees that except for Jokic. I sincerely think that, look, he wants to be. He's more competitive than he's given credit for. He wants to be the best center. He wants all of those things, but I don't think he looks at the game of basketball as if it's me and this guy and it's us two and everything. And that's part of the joy of him. Is I do think other players certainly approach the game that way, and it can disrupt maybe the outcome of the game. Jokic doesn't, but at the same time, when there are moments within a game when it can come down to just two players mano a mano. And yeah, this was a good week for that.
He monoed quite well.
He did. Before we get into that, though, I do want to talk about the Avs 5-game road trip that they're embarking on, starting in Winnipeg tonight against the Jets. Some good news. Philip Grubauer flew out with the team, so that's good. But Pablo Francouz has been doing a great job.
Yeah, Frankie's okay.
He's no Groot.
I think
Ringing endorsement.
I see a lot of this like, oh, the Avs are in a 1A, 1B goalie situation, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
like Philip Grubauer has got like a nice long track record here. You know, he's never been like a full-time starter, but you know, he's on like a 30-game heater, you know, right now where it's starting to get to be like, okay, this guy's for real. You know, Frankie's been in the NHL for 10 minutes and
with that he has been doing well.
He's been solid. He's given up some goals that have been you can't give them up, but his response to it is great. You know, he's locked it down. He hasn't let it bleed. He hasn't let it really get out of hand. He's kept his team pretty much in it. And that's all you can ask for from a backup goalie that's trying to start games for you. They can't ride this much longer. But Grubauer should be back pretty quickly. If not, you know, obviously he won't play tonight. But if he's not back Thursday or Saturday, I would be pretty surprised.
Then Nikita Zadorov also flew with the team to Winnipeg. He had a broken jaw.
Yeah, the broken jaw and the teeth rearrangement.
There's
Yeah.
a phrase.
Yeah.
Teeth rearrangement.
I thought nothing of it when I tweeted it, and then somebody quote tweeted it and just put that part in quotes, and I was like, it does sound kind of interesting that way, doesn't it?
As I said to you, T3 rearrangement sounds like something that Nikita Zorov does to someone else.
Yeah, very, very true. Well, he's like the destroyer of shoulders and arms and things, but yes, very much. Yeah, Z I think will be fine. Honestly, guys play with broken jaws all the time. It doesn't affect his legs, doesn't affect his hands.
Wait,
Hockey.
you go back to that other part where you talked about guys playing with broken jaws all the time.
Yeah, like a guy gets
That's
a broken
hockey
a guy
for
a guy
ya.
gets a broken jaw, you wire it shut, and it just means he talks less. Although in Z's case, it doesn't. So
Oh my god.
you know, it just he's just gonna. I think he'll be back this week. Honestly, there's no reason for a hockey player to miss more than 1 or 2 games with a broken jaw. There's just not. You
So
That is
dumb.
so
you take
wild.
you take a painkiller or something, you numb it up, whatever you got to do. You go out there, you put the cage on so they can't get rocked again, can't take another puck
that
to
only
the
helps
face.
so much. I mean, it definitely still
And-
rattles around in there.
Well, and you're gonna feel it every time you hit and blah
Yeah.
blah blah. But you know, you're a hockey player. It's not that
hockey
big
fans
of a
are
deal.
real big about talking about how tough they are, and it can be really annoying. But the truth is, they get to
It's-
get. You
it's
get to own that corner.
Yeah, that's-
I know you guys can have it.
It's incredibly annoying because it's very please like my sport.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like look, we get it, pitchers miss games because they got little blisters.
Yeah.
But blisters are
A different
hugely
thing.
important.
Yeah,
to
you have to be able to
do.
grip.
And let's be real, the only thing that a broken jaw does for Zadorov is maybe make him talk less.
Yeah.
Hopefully make him talk less.
I mean,
Make
he's
him,
not going to feel that when he lays the wood on someone.
And he is, but you get over it. You have
Wow.
no reason, no realistic reason not to play. All of his functional skills are
Hey,
intact.
do you
Plus, he's
guys
gonna
get
have like
Econo
4
back?
painkillers in him, and he's just gonna be all
Yeah.
tingly everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, like the guy just had his jaw wired shut, and he had 2 plates put into his face, and he's not going to be able to go through security at the airport anymore. like his life just changed in a really weird way, but it doesn't. You have a job to do.
Gladiators.
Like, go play.
Okay, well, with that, let's move on to the other injuries.
Oh, this will take a while.
Oh.
Mikko Rantanen skated.
Yeah.
Good news.
That's great. Like that's a great start. That's
Wait,
where it begins.
That's how you. Yeah.
He can't play through his injury. What's going on here? I thought this was a tough
No,
sport.
that's a knee sprain, and early in the year you let that one just heal.
We take painkillers. I thought though.
That changes your functional ability to play.
Okay.
A broken jaw.
I take back
doesn't.
everything I said
So-
about hockey players being tough.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It doesn't. In no way does this rattle my cage. So, Mikko will be back week or two. Landy, no update. Colin Wilson, nobody even knows what happened to him. So
Yeah.
that's a total mystery. It was a non-contact injury. He left practice. He was mad. He threw a little mini fit leaving the ice because he gets hurt all the time, and nobody knows what's going on with him. He's just disappeared into the ether. And he might have just lost his job in the process because the depth has played well enough that it's like when he comes back, you're like, do you need him?
Well, P.E. Belmar has a concussion.
Oh my god, we're gonna do the whole list.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's
yeah.
it.
Well, and Pebbles has
And
he's
that's
got a
big.
concussion, and then he went through protocol, but all indications from the team to us was that it should be short term, but you never know with concussions. But
Dirty hit.
Yeah, he got the guy who hit him got suspended
yeah,
3
Nick
games.
Foligno got 3 games, which I thought was a little much given his history, but it's fine. I mean, you want to take the hits out of the game, you suspend guys.
Well,
So
all right. How do you think they're going to do tonight against the Jets?
I mean, the Jets are awful defensively, so it should look a lot like the Columbus game, just up and down. If they can get into that kind of game, they'll be okay. Winnipeg's strength is in their top 6, so you don't want to get into too much of a run and gun with them because they can outgun the Avs right now. And Patrick Laine looks really good again, and that's scary for everybody. So I think it's an uphill battle, but with bad goaltending and bad defense from Winnipeg, the Avs will have a shot, of course.
Do you have a score prediction?
No, I know. I mean, it's hockey.
I know. I still wanted to see.
No, I gave up trying to predict games a long time ago. I
I'll
don't,
predict. Yeah, I was gonna say 9-1.
I don't-
9-1,
pick 9-1.
okay.
I don't have
Feels
the,
like a safe bet.
I don't have the ego involved to try and act like I have an impact on the outcome. So
Okay.
I lack that part of the hockey writer job.
I feel attacked.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I specified hockey writer job.
Thank you.
no. AJ has this thing too about even with like wearing the same shirt that the team won in.
We have no impact on games. Jinxes aren't real. They're all
Everything
garbage.
impacts everything, AJ.
It's
True.
all garbage.
A
So.
What you
butterfly
just said
flaps his
changed
wings
something
and 1,000
somewhere.
miles away, the Avs lose.
Yeah, yeah. When I was younger, I kept the volume on my TV on an even number because I always thought that they lost when it was an odd number. You know what that
They
did? It made me crazy.
It made you a little OCD. For sure it did.
That's all that did.
Really did that.
It made me
But it
crazy.
adds more to sports when
Yeah,
you have
it-
those types of
it-
like traditions.
It
like,
makes
I need
it.
to
It's not a
keep this.
tradition. It's insanity. It just makes it too important. It makes me feel too important to the game, like I'm involved, and I'm irrelevant in the way that the outcome is decided. I make no difference. None of us make any difference. We are completely irrelevant in the outcome of sports games.
You are not a unique and special
No,
snowflake.
you're not,
You
dude.
are the
You're-
all singing, all dancing.
You
crap
are
of
going
the
to
world.
melt like all the other snowflakes.
Oh my god. I think
Strong
that,
disagree.
I think everything matters.
Yeah, I get that I'm
And
alone
I
in this
am
boat,
crazy.
and that sports fans hate that I feel this way, especially hockey fans who are all insane in like the most lovable way.
Do you think
Usually.
there's any sort of charm in like a collective group of strangers buying into the same BS
Yeah.
and being like, you know what, we're all wearing our hats backwards tonight.
No,
And like,
I-
that's-
Rally
but
Cats.
how fun
Rally
is this that we're all doing it?
No, you know what that is? That's called a cult. So
But sports are like a
And-
fun
a
cult.
fun-
right?
yeah,
And
a lovable cult.
This is where sports actually like inject the thing into the world that's like, okay, in real life this is terrible, but we get to all, it's basically cosplay, right?
Yeah,
This
you
is
get
what
to,
I always
like,
say. It's like going to Comic-Con. We all dress up as our favorite characters. And
Now
we
we're
go to
getting
the
into
thing
some
and cheer.
crossover material.
It's ridiculous.
yeah, no. See,
Also, definitely a cult, by the way. As someone who's been to multiple Comic Cons, I can tell you,
Very-
fun cult.
It's a fun
That's a
fun
fun
cult.
cult.
Yes.
Fun cult.
Yeah, and the
Nobody
difference
dies.
the line between fun and insane. How many times have we seen videos of people being like lit on fire at sporting events over the years? Like,
Okay, you're right. That the cult can go too far.
that-
right?
yeah,
People
that
destroying
goes
our
too far.
is that it's
televisions on
like,
YouTube.
all right, like great. It starts, like the volume bar on my TV was a gateway cult crime, because 6 months later, I'm into hooliganism and I'm beating some guy up behind the bleachers.
I think a little
'cause he's
sports,
wearing the wrong
a little
colors.
sports culting, if I can make a word. Sports culting can be a good thing. A little bit.
I want to print the shirts. DNVR. It's a fun cult.
It's a fun cult.
The thing, the
Rally caps
the big
are
thing is though,
objectively cool.
Like,
Like-
it's a great big community, and we're all here for illogical reasons, devoting way too much of our time to something,
of course.
that's totally irrelevant and stupid and worthless in our lives. But we all have devoted all of our time to it, and it's awesome.
And
So-
we found worth in it. We
Exactly.
found worth in
We
it in
injected the
roundabout
value
ways.
into this
we
valueless thing.
we were the ones that decided the value on it, and
Yep.
it's turned into like a community. Like all of my friends are sports people.
Yep.
all
Well,
of
because
my
otherwise,
family-
a rich guy hitting a
Everything.
ball over a fence with a stick would have no
yeah,
interest.
We
Why-
can
why
reduce
do I
this all
care?
to a dumb thing, like, oh, he put it in the hoop a lot today. Like, okay, yeah, it's
Right,
really dumb. But like, we
right.
inject it with this meaning. My favorite of these cult things, though, back in 2017 when the Warriors won 73 games, they went on like a 20-something game winning streak, and it all started apparently the day that some fan, a high-profile fan, brought a toaster to the arena, and Klay Thompson signed it. And then they threw it on Reddit, and ever since then they went on this like 20. Now, was that a coincidence? Of course. But how fun was it to be like, oh, the toaster streak is alive? It's up to
Why-
20 games.
Why would you bring
And
a
then it
toaster
ended.
to the arena?
Exactly, it's absurd.
Why would you bring a billy goat to a baseball stadium?
Why would you
Right.
bring catfish and throw it onto the
Every
ice?
tradition is actually really dumb when you think about it.
That's nasty.
Or remember in
Red Wings
2007
fans throwing with the octopus and throwing the squid and all that. And
So
Cody
they-
McLeod had it right when he threw that shit back. He was get that out of here. Bye.
Also, that's
Nasty.
delicious wasted food in both cases.
Yeah, I mean,
Both
hang out
octopus
food.
and catfish, delicious.
I thought you were going to say in the
But
goat.
if you've
Which
won
is
20 out of
disgusting.
21 baseball games, you don't stop wearing your black jerseys.
Great
you don't.
point.
You
Yes.
don't
Great
stop
point.
wearing your black jerseys.
Did you wear it on the one that they lost?
Yes, but
AJ, it's not
eventually,
about
the,
whether it's true or not. Again, we're moving
Eventually
past
the
that.
magic does
Is
run
it
out.
fun?
Yeah.
That's why you
And
have to
it's a
change
lot of
seats
fun.
at your house.
And that's the thing. It's not magic. We're all adults here.
Hey, man.
It's not magic,
How
all
dare
right? This is not the world of Harry Potter, all right? We're all muggles. Let's just accept it.
Oh.
As the head of the analytics department, I agree with AJ.
Okay.
Just so that's
oh
clear.
well, we have some people on Periscope saying, "You go, AJ."
Oh,
Not
my, really?
alone.
Really? The people at home are enjoying
on,
this?
people.
Okay.
Yeah,
you
people
know
at
what?
home are enjoying.
Somebody
it.
actually agrees.
No
with me.
predictions, no traditions.
This is
no,
the day.
no superstitions.
No,
Oh.
Wow.
I gave it all up in simply for the sake of being a little bit saner when I watched my sports because it was just driving me crazy.
Love that you had it on even numbers.
Well, and
for
like I have a
volume.
thing for even
How
numbers. I
odd.
don't
Right.
I don't do odd numbers ever.
Yeah.
It's part of my OCD, so that was always it. Like the volume bar never goes above 24, and like those things all are still in place. I just don't apply them to sports anymore.
Do you tweet about no hitters? Like, how far do you take this?
Yeah, I tweet about no hitters and shutouts all the
That's
time.
so wrong, dude.
that
That's
is
so
so
wrong.
You know why? Because it doesn't matter. I have no effect.
Let me tell you this: every single time a no hitter has ever been spoiled, someone tweeted about it.
Somebody,
It's
somewhere.
100% true.
That is a fact.
And
Actually.
you know what? I'd be willing to bet you that if you went through every no hitter since Twitter started,
Can't prove
somebody had tweeted about it.
it. No, can't
Trying,
prove it.
and it was usually a fan of the other team who was like, "Great no hitter they got going on."
Fans of the other
And that
team
was
can't
it.
jinx your. See, he just doesn't know how jinxes work. Now I get it. See, fans of the other team can't jinx your team.
Okay.
I thought that was well understood, right? You can only jinx your own team, and you can't purposefully double jinx. That's no, the jinx
Yeah,
gods
the jinx,
know.
that's
Oh, true. really?
They
That's
know.
true, the
Yeah.
basketball-
Isn't there a local writer who has an entire brand off built on being wrong all the time that he just gets to call a jinx?
Someone on
No clue.
Periscope also said sanity is overrated, which we agree
Yes,
with you.
yes.
That's what
Well,
This
the
is our
sports
excuse to be
fun.
insane.
Yeah,
We get
exactly.
all of our
Yes.
exactly what it is.
yes,
It's our
we get all of our
crazy.
insanity out in front of the television
Yeah.
while we're watching our team.
It's a
See,
great
and-
outlet for insanity.
And how much
The real
safer
world
is
is a
it
bad
to
outlet for it.
So all of our insanity goes towards sports instead of like serial killing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. We're making the world a better place. No, I get all that. I couldn't do it anymore. I just personally, I had to step out. I had to let you guys take the reins on being crazy on that one. And I decided to let my crazy out in other ways.
There's a certain level of this that's actually required in the NBA, though, because as I always say,
Yes, tie
it's
it back
almost impossible for the Denver Nuggets to win a championship for reasons beyond their control. And like knowing that, a lot of people say, well, what's the point of watching if I just know we never? And I'm always like, there's a lot of different reasons besides the championship that sports are fun. But I also understand this idea of always chasing something that's impossible. But there is a 0.01% chance they win. And sometimes you just have to be like, you know what? I got the lotto ticket. I got it. I feel it this time. I know the odds are against us. And to me, that's what sports are really about. It's this
that's
idea
this year, right?
This
Pepsi
year,
Center has the lotto ticket.
They
They're
have the
going to
lotto
get 2
ticket.
championships in 1 year.
Hey, man, it's at least a thing that is a
don't.
possibility. It's
See?
look at Drew over here.
Look, man, listen to everything he just said and cross-apply that to the Colorado Rockies.
that
Who've
was
been in the
amazing.
World Series one time and didn't win a single game. And we deal with this every day. It's like, yeah, we're covering franchises that have never won a championship, really haven't even been close to winning a
And
championship.
the deck is stacked against them.
Right, and it's very similar with the Rockies, whether it's budgetary concerns, people not wanting to come here because of the way they're covered nationally, the way they're
Right.
thought of, the very real thing in baseball with like pitchers just don't want to pitch here.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, the deck is very, and when it seems like when you bring that up to some people, they're like, oh, you're making an excuse for why they never win. It's just like,
Orange
no,
slices.
just recognize that it's very unlikely they're going to win. And so when they win 91 games like they do a year ago, and there are fans who didn't enjoy a single second of it, that's when it's like, what are you doing with your time?
Exactly, and the part about suspending belief here is like, imagine you talk to a Rockies fan or somebody that's not a Rockies fan, like, I want to get into the Rockies, tell me about it. And it's like, okay, well, they have almost no chance of winning. Like, oh,
Let's start there.
You mean this year? No, every year.
Ever.
They almost have no chance of winning. Like, well, I don't want to do this. This sounds terrible. Like, no, but it's a lot of fun because we trick ourselves into thinking they are going to do it. Right. And it's like, wait, hold on. That's sports.
I've used this metaphor about sports where it's like, being a sports fan is like playing the hardest video game ever, and you can never get to the last level and win it. But the craziest part about us, and this goes back to our insanity as sports fans, when you finally beat the game, you don't just stop playing.
Right, exactly.
You just start over and start playing it all over again.
Right.
Like, you never just like.
That's not true.
Wouldn't it make more sense if like the
If I ever
Rockies?
beat Battletoads, I'm never playing that again.
No, but if the Avs win a
That's
Stanley
done.
Cup this year, you're coming back next year for more.
Yeah.
So like. The logical thing would be like, once your team wins a championship, you're like, cool, I beat the game. I'm going to go do something else now. But nope, we just start the game over and try to beat it
all
again.
over.
And also, if you
And it
sat
gets
da-
harder.
And if you
Yeah,
sat
that's just
down
not
for
how
like
video
5
games work,
hours
though.
and you didn't beat the game, you wouldn't be like, oh, that was a waste of 5 hours. I had fun.
Yep.
Almost got there. Didn't
Just
quite.
don't play MOBAs, and that's probably true.
I shouldn't have made a video game reference around
Yep.
you two.
I was gonna
Start
say,
picking it
AJ and I
apart.
are resisting the
Yep.
temptation to take this way off the rails.
Yep.
Well, with what we were talking about over here, I think it's just right to talk about how certain people on the East Coast could believe
Oh my god.
that Denver actually has too much of an advantage to even have teams.
No one actually believes
This
this.
Yeah.
week, I learned
Yeah,
that
this-
a Denver team has never lost at home.
Yep.
How amazing was that to learn?
Because of the altitude.
This is going to be the loudest episode of TDSP
It
of all
is.
time.
It
I
is.
think,
Sorry,
'cause
live
Spike,
listeners.
sit down.
Yeah, come on, Brett.
Yeah, I'm not calling him Spike.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
That's an adult who called himself Spike.
I do have some pushback on that. I do prefer to call people what they ask to be called, no matter how ridiculous it is. That's just a thing for me. I don't like insisting that someone else go by a different identity. I didn't.
Oh
like
no,
that
you don't
part of that
understand.
interview
This,
thing. But
this is actually a complete and total insult, though. It's a purposeful.
Yeah,
not
no.
calling them.
No, I get it. I understand. I just think there's plenty of material to work with here to insult Spike for his lack of intelligence about anything related to how basketball works, what it really means to be out of shape, why anyone should care, how Denver works, air.
The lack of
Air.
understanding of
Yeah, strong-
science.
Yeah, strong
Yeah.
takes about
Somehow the
air.
Coors Field effect moved on to every sport.
Congratulations, everyone. It sucks, right? This is really, really irritating. This
But the
crap
thing
is, but it's keeping Larry Walker out of the Hall of
I was
Fame.
gonna say, see, the Avs
Like,
already
it's
have a bunch of
not-
Hall of Famers.
It's not just
Game's
dudes named
over.
Spike spouting their dumbass opinions on podcasts and the radio. Like, this is a real thing that real people believe. They're just not as stupid about articulating it as he was. But it's keeping Larry Walker out of the Hall of Fame. It's the reason Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, Matt Holliday have 0 MVPs between them. Todd Helton is the reason Carmelo Anthony was underrated for his entire career. And now it's gone to Nikola Jokic. In the aftermath of game-winning shots, that's when they got to take... I'm done with these people and the altitude stuff, man.
Here's the thing: is like that. That's a problem with baseball. This guy doesn't actually believe his take. No. So I don't want to give him the credit of getting all riled up about it because I'm like, he's just throwing this out there because he knows what, like, and the funny thing is he tweeted it before the game. It was like a built-in excuse because he already knew he had gone way too far down this Nikola Jokic path where he was, trying to talk about how he's out of shape and he's a joke or whatever. And then he's like, oh, what's going to happen if Jokic just sauces on, Embiid? Okay, well, I'll just build in this excuse about how it's unfair and blah, blah, blah. If Nikola Jokic was that out of shape, wouldn't the altitude affect him more?
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes in the argument, but
would he have been able to play 65 minutes in a playoff game?
There's no. It's so dumb.
Soup's out of shape, dog.
I have an unpopular opinion here. I think Spike won.
He did.
This is what bugs me about it is, there's people, it's like everybody, when you wake up in the morning, you pick what avatar you want to be in the world online, and he, every day picks up the troll, okay, here I go, I'm going in.
The guy under the bridge.
And his secret, exactly, his secret weapon is just, turd throwing. And, that's all he's doing, and everybody's like, let's invite him into our conversation. Let's, no, I mean, look, he plays that role, and it usually comes from somebody that does radio. This is a very big radio thing, and, of course, he's a radio person in Philadelphia. We have our own of this type who it's we don't believe what they're saying 100%, but this is the easiest note to play, and it riles people up, and I'm just going to go online and just piss everyone off today. And that's who they choose to be in life. He chose to do that, and sadly, I think that a lot of people, especially in the Nuggets community, really took the bait because we're 4 days away from this, and we're still talking about this guy.
Here's where it goes both ways, though. I think we win in a sense of, there were some hilarious, quote tweets dunking on him where we all got some great jokes out of it. But, if you're in the dude's mentions, mad, yelling and screaming and calling him names, then he totally won.
He totally won.
Yeah.
So for the people who don't know what we were just talking about, this guy from Philadelphia, he works for a radio station. He tweeted out, basically, I tried to find this tweet and can't find it anymore.
Because he's already on to pissing off someone else.
Yeah, exactly. He tweeted just basically before the game about how the altitude was an unfair advantage. And then later on, which I think was the biggest reason he got noticed, was he tweeted that Nikola Jokic was fat. And I don't even know what else.
Should be ashamed of himself.
Should be ashamed of
himself.
himself.
Oh, no, this should be ashamed of himself. That tweet came out in the third quarter when the Philadelphia 76ers were up 20 points.
Yeah.
That was an absolute heat check.
Dunk
this
on.
can never come back to haunt me moment.
Yeah.
Which came back to haunt him not haunt him, but it came back on him in the most spectacular way.
With that 21-point comeback, which was the
largest in Nuggets history.
And fourth quarter comeback in franchise history. And Jokic hit the game winner.
And he had 16 points in the fourth.
He personally outscored the Sixers in the fourth quarter.
It was an absolutely beautiful. I said this on DNVR Nuggets. It was such a satisfying sports moment. We don't get these very often. I mean, let's just peel back all of the layers. First of all, it was the biggest comeback in Denver Nuggets history, fourth quarter, 53-year history. So you automatically get that. You get this player, Jokic, who had been in a funk. He'd been in a funk prior to this. This was a breaking out of the funk moment. So you get that relief. It was at home in front of that home crowd. And then you get him to hit a game-winning shot against the player who is most compared to him. And I think it's funny. General managers voted Jokic first-team All-NBA. Then they voted him the best center coming into the season. But the fan base, if you just had pulled the regular fans, it would be reversed. Embiid usually wins this one. So it was, there's this, I think, tension between Embiid fans and Jokic fans, which is its own absurdity. But there's this tension. So for him to do it against that guy in that moment, in that way, in that game, after being down 20, it was just how many times do you get a sports moment where everything comes together to create this one happy moment?
True poetic justice.
And then that's the second night in a row it happened at Pepsi Center.
Does it against the Timberwolves.
Against the second guy that he gets compared against.
What I like, though, is that everything that you just said about that moment applied to the Avs the night before against the Preds and Nathan McKinnon and Matt Duchene and all of that. And it was the two most satisfying nights imaginable, where it was just everything about it was so cathartic. Where it was just yes, Jokic against Embiid, and then you had McKinnon against Duchene, and the outcomes were proper and they were historic in their own way, and it was just so satisfying.
And we talk about the journey of sports fanhood, and the championship is that ultimate goal. It should be. It hangs over every single aspect of sports, every single second. If you're not playing for the championship, everything is diminished. But there's all these moments along the way that are also so meaningful. And this is why I don't like well, come talk to me when they're ready to contend for a title or whatever. Like, if you have that mentality, you missed this weekend.
The journey is the destination.
You didn't get to enjoy that this was its own little mini championship. It's not the same value, but it was its own little mini thing that was like so perfect, this perfect moment in time that had nothing to do with the championship. It was just like, yeah, and I was there for it. I got to be in the arena, and like when it happened, it's funny. There's no cheering in the press box. I actually had goosebumps on that moment. My hair was sticking up, and I was like, I can't help myself with it. Like, what's going on? It was such a cool moment to just feel the energy in that building and to feel that there were 17,000 people that were all feeling that exact sort of tension and excitement. And then when he hits the shot, you're just like, am I dreaming right now? This is perfect.
They were back to back. It's one of those ones where, so I'm watching both of them on my computer, right? And I'm across from my girlfriend, and so she can't see what I'm watching, but I'm reacting to every single Avs goal or during that fourth quarter. And it's one of those ones where someone who's watching you watch the game is having almost as much fun as you are, where they're like, again, another goal? Are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah, no, this is really happening. Or when I'm like, there's a minute and a half left. Come here, babe. I know you haven't watched a single second of this game, but and then explain everything that had gone on in the fourth quarter and who these people are real quickly. And then he hits the shot because you've already set it up for someone who doesn't watch sports, but you don't want them to miss the moment. So you're like, even though you don't understand what's happening right now, come here and watch this. And he pulled up and hit that shot, and she was like, wow. I was like, yeah, that's why we do this.
It's funny that you mentioned the sports in a vacuum thing. Like when we're so far inside of it, it's hard to see the games within a vacuum. But I actually had a real life example this weekend of someone experiencing sports in a vacuum. Allie's friend came to the Buffs game, and she had never really gone to a Buffs game before.
She's a CU alum, but just had never really gone to football
wasn't a big
games.
football fan. And like for me, watching the Buffs game was almost like agony because it was this low-scoring, sloppy, ugly game. And of course, the Buffs win it on a walk-off field goal as the clock expires. But I wasn't like, I don't know, it was like more of a relief than an excitement that they finally won. But as we were walking out of the stadium, her friend was just like, "Oh my God, that was so much fun! This is amazing! That was great!"
She's like, "You do this every weekend?"
Yeah, she's like, "There's all this anxiety, and then like this great release at the end. It was so awesome." And I was like, "Oh, that's what it's like to experience for the first without time, all of the context of the Buffs sucking for the last 20 years. Like it just in a vacuum, she experienced it and was like, that was awesome." And I was like, that was awesome.
And those true and perfect moments are very few and far between, right? They don't come around very often, and that's part of what makes them so special. It's like most of the time, Denver's down 20 in the fourth, and they lose by 20. Right. And in that one, they just happen to come back in that perfect moment. It's just that it's part of the rarity is what makes it so special.
Well, all of this is the romance of sports, right? Yeah. This is what keeps you coming back because, they're down, they're down by 20. They're probably going to lose, but what about that one time? Yeah. There's always that possibility in sports. There's always that possibility looming that something special is going to happen.
Well, we're pulling a DNVR Broncos podcast with our first segment being 47 minutes.
That was first segment?
Yeah.
I thought that was both the first and the second segment.
Since we were so happy, I don't even know. Total Bev is giving the DNVR fam 30% off your purchase of $25 or more with a max purchase of $75 using the promo code DNVR 2019 online or on the Total Beverage app. You should download that today. They've got everything you're looking for on the app and in person, including CBD products. So if you get overwhelmed with the hundreds of options, don't worry. Their incredible staff members will help you out, and the app is super easy to navigate. Don't forget to use that promo code DNVR 2019 for 30% off.
It's a sick deal.
It is a really good deal. And Total Bev is just awesome in general. But okay, yeah. So we should talk about some football.
Are we done with the Nuggets?
Well,
Can I take us to church for just 1 second?
Okay.
Because we never really threw it to Nuggets.
I know. It was like,
Take me to church.
There we go.
Wow.
Oh, I was
Usually
wrong.
I'm the one that
37
sings
minutes,
37
not 47. Okay, so we've got some
Okay,
more.
for a second, I thought you said 43, but knew I'd written 37, and I thought we had another Yanni
Laurel. Heads, tails.
Wow.
Heads, tails.
No, I do. I want to take us to church here for a moment because I've been waiting for the perfect moment to come on.
Okay.
This show is about bringing Avs fans to Nuggets, Nuggets fans to Avs, Rockies, so on and so forth. And I know there's a lot of people that just either don't care about basketball or don't know the first way to get in. And this is what I want to say. The Denver Nuggets have their best player in franchise history right now playing for them in Nikola Jokic. And they have a bunch of players that are – it's not a one-man band. In the NBA, you can't be a one-man band and have any type of success anymore. Now, you can't, even in the West, you can't even make the playoffs if you're a one-man band. The Nuggets have their guy, and it's such a unique experience watching him, and it's such a unique he's such a unique player in every single way and person in every single way. But the fact that he hit 2-game winners, and we put a thing up on DNVR, he had 4 last year, including and then an additional 2 that were go-ahead but not technically game winners. They were de facto game winners, but they don't count. This guy is just an absolutely amazing basketball player. 25 points, 13 rebounds, 8.5 assists in his first playoff outing last season. And I've said this before, and it seems people think it's blasphemous, but as time goes on, it's less and less blasphemous, and I promise you, people are going to come to the realization that it is true. The Denver Nuggets have their Larry Bird. They have their Tim Duncan. They have their guy that when you think about a franchise 20 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that was Nikola Jokic's team. And they're Dirk Nowitzki. And it's kind of a special thing. I see a lot of people are sort of migrating. I mean, the Nuggets are more popular now than they have been probably for at least 10 years, going back to the Carmelo Chauncey era. But what they have right now in this guy, you're going to miss it if you jump on at the playoffs. You're going to miss nights like last night. And when we talk about sports and the real things we remember about them, we remember nights like last night or the night before or countless other ones that have already happened. And I say all that to say, if you're on the fence about the Nuggets, their jerseys say Denver across the chest. They're a very entertaining and easy to root for team, and they have this one guy that just so happens to be a player that if you watch him, you will tell your children about him.
And I'll add this. There's been a narrative around the NBA for the last few years now, which is what's the point? Only one team can win the championship anyway. That's out the window this year. It's far more wide open, and yes, it is a tough path for the Nuggets, but they've never had as good of a chance as they have right now to capitalize on the parity that exists in the NBA.
They are a disaster this season, according to everyone. They're 7-2 and have the best record in the West.
Yeah,
and it's a tough path for everyone in the West because they have to go through Denver too.
Yeah,
and that's what makes this team so watchable, is that they're capable of anything on any given night. I mean, they haven't even. The reason why they're a disaster is because you can argue they haven't really played all that well in a lot of their games, and they're 7-2. I mean, it's been for us. It's been like watching Nathan McKinnon score 25 points in 17 games. You don't feel like he's played all that well most of the season, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, he's dominant. Oh wow, that was.
And then you just
how'd that happen?
And you get the satisfaction of being like, what's next? What if he hits the next gear?
Well, and like with the Nuggets, like they are the easiest team for me to watch in all of Denver sports because they're the most fun. Like they play a brand of basketball that's exciting. Yeah. They have this super goofy, like lovable superstar.
I'd rather him than almost any other superstar in history because of that very thing.
It's
where you're
so easy to latch onto him and be like, well, what's this big goofy dude gonna do next?
It's also why everybody hates him because they look at these game winners. They're like, oh man, that was so lucky. And it's
lucky.
like, yeah, he's been lucky for 5 years, almost every game. Right. So this is just who he is. He's
also,
a goofy.
The Philly game winner, he passes up. He said as much himself. He passes up a wide open floater because he's such an unselfish player. He tries to get basically a dunk to Millsap. That doesn't work out. He has to take a tough shot and sinks that.
Well, what's funny about the Embiid-Jokic thing, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but Embiid had 8 turnovers, I think, in that game, and a lot of them in the third and fourth quarter, in large part because he just doesn't read the court well. And I don't think people always say selfish, unselfish. It's just Jokic's body is slow, and everybody points that out, but his brain is fast. It's faster than everybody else's by triple. And when you get into these clutch moments, a lot of times it's not about how fast did you get to point A to point B. It's how quickly did you read everybody else on the court moving. And Jokic just consistently reads everyone else in such a fascinating way.
Speaking of it being perfect as well, the whole narrative is, okay, Jokic might be better on offense, but he's not nearly as good on defense.
Right.
Embiid against Jokic, your guy, 0 for 7, 0 points, multiple turnovers, 2 blocks for Jokic.
Well, couldn't get free on the final shot either. I mean,
Jokic wasn't Embiid the one chasing Jamal Murray when he had the dunk?
Oh, what'd you call that, chasing? So this is another funny, sort of perfect thing where it's on a platter.
He looked
the narrative was, Jokic is so tired and he can't play a full game. Well, in the fourth quarter, Jokic had 16 points, running all around, and the play you're talking about, which was actually a crucial bucket.
Yeah,
Embiid, his value is he can switch out onto guards and he can move with them. He was so tired, he didn't even try.
Yeah,
he went out there. And
he was a matador. It was Ole.
Yeah.
Well,
And he
that's
actually gave up. Like, he literally
Yeah.
just was like, I can't do this right now.
that's because they were playing the game in space, of course.
I was gonna say that air, man. It's the
What
air.
happens when you're on the moon?
With that, we got a Periscope question that I do want to get to. We don't have to go too in detail in it, but Nuggets Western Conference Finals or bust early, I know, but you have to admit everyone is thinking about it.
Again, in sports, I just don't ever classify these things as like or bust, but certainly they are capable of making it to the Western Conference Finals or beyond. They're, as AJ said, they are capable of winning a championship if the perfect version of themselves kind of comes together, if they reach 100% of their upside. So I understand that. I would think if you said, if they fall short of that, would it feel like, oh, man, there was an opportunity here? Absolutely. But at the same time, I don't know if they're going to be favored for 2 series when it comes, like by Vegas' standard. So they'll probably be, if anything, they'll probably be one series they're 60-40 favored in, and another one that they're either 50-50 or worse in. And if you want to call that Western Conference or bust, go ahead. I don't tend to.
It's always hard to look at things in that way because in the end, it all comes down to matchups. I just had this conversation about CU basketball, who all gets a quick shout out on this, but it's like people are saying like, oh, this is the year Tad Boyle finally has to make it to the Sweet 16, and it's like, well, yes, that's what you want, and you want to look at it that way, but in the end, it all comes down to matchups. And while it's much more magnified in the NCAA tournament because it's a one-off thing, in the NBA, it's the same thing, and that was actually a frustrating part about last year is the matchups fell perfectly for them, right? In fact, I was a big believer in the fact that Malone was playing Puppet Master and tried to make that happen.
100% was.
And it worked, and then they weren't able to capitalize on in the second round. But you never know if this year it falls the exact opposite, and they get a terrible matchup in the first round. It's hard, it's hard to look at those things until you see the bracket. If there's a chance when the bracket comes out, we can say, okay, well, yeah, they should win that, and then whoever comes out of there, they should win that too.
Exactly,
now it's
yeah.
Western Conference Finals or bust.
Right.
I've been telling Avs fans this all year too, who are like, "Oh, well, they got 1 round and then 2 rounds, so they should go to the Western Conference Finals this year." And it's like, well, let's see who they play. Like, if they end up if they end up second in their division and they play St. Louis in the first round, that's the worst matchup they can have. Like that, and they could lose in the first round, and it would be like, that's the worst possible matchup they could have had. Where it's like, oh, if you play Calgary again, you're gonna walk all over them. And you're going to stomp them, and you're not going to worry about it. You're like, oh, that's a great matchup. Now we are into the second round.
Yeah, progress in sports isn't always linear, and that can be very frustrating, but it's true.
All right, well, moving on to some football. Ryan, Drew Lock is practicing at this very moment. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I'm so happy. I've been watching your Twitter feed here on your tweet deck, just seeing like Broncos Twitter just go crazy over Drew Lock. It's so funny because it's just, it's what we've been reduced to at this point, honestly. But like that's what we're hanging on to here. But no, I'm very happy because there was a time there where I thought I was going crazy, and I was just like, is this ever gonna happen? Like, are they ever gonna do this? Or is there something they know that we don't? Is there a plan out there that we don't understand? The fact that he's finally out there gives me hope that we will see him this season, which, as we've talked about a million times, should be the number one goal of this season, is to learn a little bit about what you have in the kid. So now that he's out there, I'm like, okay, the clock has started. We will see him eventually, and that's really important into the future of the Broncos.
Well, they play the Minnesota Vikings this week. Now that there has actually been some tape on Brandon Allen, how do you think he's going to play against that Vikings defense?
It's a mix of the tape and the fact that the Vikings defense is a hell of a lot better than the Browns defense.
Yeah.
It should be a struggle. Here's the thing, though, that I think is being discounted. I think the Broncos defense is going to have a really good chance to put the clamps on the Minnesota offense, and so I think it could be a little bit of a defensive slugfest. In the end, they certainly have the advantage with Kirk Cousins over Brandon Allen, but I don't think it's going to be as ugly as some people are thinking it out to be.
Bryce Callahan is also practicing today.
Yeah, that's an odd one. There's been a lot of different reporting out there. The sources I've talked to, a lot of people believed he was done for the season with like surgery on the table, but it sounds like maybe now there's a little bit of hope that he can avoid the surgery. If I were to guess, I think he practices a couple of days, says it still doesn't feel right, and then goes and has surgery on his foot. But it is odd because no one was expecting him to practice, and they were just kind of dancing around the whole IR thing, which is also a mystery. A lot of mysteries with the Broncos this year. But
mysteries with injuries in Denver sports.
yeah, the weird thing is, like, if they don't play Bryce Callahan, which seems like the logical move at this point, it will probably help their compensatory picks in the upcoming draft. So might be worth considering.
All right, I know you want to talk some Buffs football, so how about that win against Stanford?
Yeah, I mean, the win against Stanford is great just because it broke the losing streak.
Yeah.
It broke the streak of losses in the second half of the season, which had been really ugly over the last couple of years. But
we should mention first home win against Pac conference competition in the Mel Tucker era, right?
Yep, there you go. That's a big one, too. But it's really more important from the 10,000-foot view because of what that weekend meant for Mel Tucker. They had circled that weekend on the calendar. I assume when they did that, they said, this is a winnable game. We're going to have it at home. Let's make this our big recruiting weekend. Mother Nature came through as well, gave us like the most perfect November
80
day
degrees.
in Colorado
Shouts
history.
to Mother Nature.
Yep. And so they go out there.
12 man.
Somehow CU fans keep showing up. Like, I love them for this. I don't understand how it's happening. They almost sell out the stadium. Great atmosphere. They go and win in an exciting way. And all the while, they had 85 recruits on campus for that game and all of their top targets. They've already got 2 commitments, one more on the way. Actually, 2 more that we know of that are coming on the way. Obviously, last week got the 5-star transfer from Alabama. So it was like all a culmination of, it kind of has this feeling of maybe we look back one day and say, remember that weekend against Stanford? That was when, the worm started to turn.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. Recruiting's hilarious like that. Like you said, the things that had to come together, like if it's a snowy, just freezing cold, miserable day, that recruiting trip was so much harder.
Yep.
So much
Oh,
harder.
definitely.
California and Texas are like,
Yeah,
no.
it's like, I don't know, man.
No.
And then if you, you get blown out, and you just not your night, but bad luck or whatever, you just get blown out. It's like, man,
Fans don't get into it.
Fans don't show up because the weather again or whatever,
Yeah.
all these things. But you give them a nice, great weekend, and then everybody starts feeling like it's destiny, and now you end up. And maybe a few other things happen, and you end up with a bunch of top recruits.
And that's the thing. And they were also strategic in the fact that they brought their big commits who were already on board in. And those guys took it on themselves, like literally retweeting out, like, we're the recruiting coordinators now.
Yeah.
So they're in there recruiting, like, come on, bro, come play with us. And so
Yeah.
you get this whole snowball rolling.
That community effect, too.
Yeah, exactly. One guy commits.
It's a
Then
weird
there's
recruiting
this-
cult.
Creates,
it's a recruiting
There we
cult.
go.
Man,
creates
that's
a
what we
sense
need.
of urgency.
Sports cult. Did you see the
Fun
Alabama LSU walking over to the Alabama recruits?
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, ooh, that is a tough break for. Not that I feel bad for Alabama, but it is one of those things where if you're a recruit and you're sitting there and they're clowning on your stadium and being like,
And then you see Ed Orgeron, who is, I love him.
Coach O?
You see him like in the
He-
post-game press
oh.
conference just being an absolute G. You're like, man, maybe I do want to go play for that guy.
He's
seems
such
like
a
a drag.
weird guy.
Someone posted a video of him. You know how Facebook does the auto captions?
Oh,
They
yeah.
posted like a screenshot from a video of him talking, and it was
yeah.
literally just a series of letters. Like they could not pick up anything he was saying. It's so good.
What do they put on SportsCenter? I'm gonna go home and eat
Oh, he said something like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go home and eat a ham sandwich or something." Like that's
and
what he
watch
wanted.
some Sports.
Oh, yeah, and
He
watch
is
Sports
so
Center.
Weird.
He's so Louisiana.
so Louisiana.
He's so Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
But like, even going back to in the off season when he was like during spring football when he was doing a press conference and they were like, someone was like playing music and he like
Yeah.
screamed it out like, "Hey guys, I'm trying to do a press conference over here!" Like,
And they kept playing it, and
no,
he got even more mad.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
kicked
love
him out. No, that was a great video.
I love Coach O. My second favorite coach in the country. Behind Mel Tucker, of course.
All right. Well, with that, it has
Listen
been a great weekend for Denver sports, like we were talking about, and that puts a smile on all of our faces, and that's what matters because taking care of your teeth is the best. Our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group are giving away a free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam. It's seriously that easy. Check them out today online or call them at 303-988-0711 to schedule your appointment. And by the end, you can get a free Sonicare toothbrush. Now it is time for our favorite segment. Oh, I don't know what's happening.
Oh, you got the point.
Oh, yeah, let's sing it, guys.
Dun, 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 dun.
Craig,
Let's see. Who won the week?
There we go. Oh, it's because I had the YouTube live.
So last week when you guys were recording the show, I was in a very tiny town in Texas, filling up the car with
So
gas.
everything isn't bigger in Texas.
And dude, I tell you, it was awesome being back home. It was so cool being reminded why Texas is a bunch of maniacs down there. But no, it was so funny because I was filling up the car with gas and like we were listening to the pod and then like that started and it just was like in my head and I was like tapping my foot while like standing at the pump and I was just like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is a thing we've created.
Great little jingle.
A good jam.
So the Avs lost last week, and the Broncos won the week with Brandon Allen for shocking the world.
By a
They should've.
landslide.
By
I mean,
a landslide,
fine.
54.
A 5-game losing streak versus that? They should have lost.
54. Oh, but they beat the Nuggets with Jamal Murray for emerging as the leader of the Nuggets and Larry Walker for his Hall of Fame campaign at gaining
Larry.
steam. The Brandon Allen for shocking the world got 54%. Then we had Larry Walker, and then the Nuggets, and then the Avs.
I'll take us.
Larry Walker.
Wow, not only did the
I'm
Avs
taking a
lose, they got
second-
last place.
Yeah.
A 5-game losing
6%.
streak. Like, of course they did.
You know what? I'm proud of Avs fans. AJ, I'm proud, man. You've built a good community that they would not. Because for a while there, I just thought they were going to win every single week.
Yeah, I
Good
did
job,
too.
Avs community, by keeping it 100.
That's
Push
right.
back when they're bad.
Right.
Don't just be like,
Punish
well,
them.
We've got to win something.
Yeah.
No. Bury them. When they're bad, just bury them.
Did you hear which one, what argument Rudo made? Or
No.
Vlad Kamenev for making a case to stay in the lineup.
That's how deep things got.
Why they lost.
Yeah. I think
Shout out
Rudo
Rudo.
tanked that one.
Wow.
He said, "Do not vote for the Avs."
literally did say
vote
that.
for. I think he said for the Nuggets, but. But all right, let's start with who won the. We did have some comments on that I wanted to read. Mel Tucker for bringing in the 2019 #1 overall recruit, and then
Yeah.
Funny and then the week they had.
Prop DD winning and Colorado finally getting sports gambling legalized,
Oh,
which
yeah.
that was big.
Yeah,
And
that was an interesting thing.
What about the
Yeah.
Rams' 3-game win streak?
The
huh?
who now?
What's a Ram?
You guys, terrible.
LA Rams are on a
no
three-game win
no one commented that. I only have 4
Terrible.
options.
Well,
I can
blame
only
the
make a
poll
poll
maker.
for 4
Hey, there's-
options.
The poll
I
maker.
know.
They're still on a 3-game winning streak.
Maybe they'll
They
win this
are.
week.
The Rams are. They were on a bye week. They play Air Force
Undefeated
this
in
week.
October. Yep, that's right. Air Force.
Andre, give me some Rams talk. How do you think they're going to do against the Air Force?
Massive
Falcons?
couple of weeks coming up with Air Force, then Wyoming, then Boise.
So 3, I guess Boise isn't really a rivalry, but that's like the target game type of thing.
Yeah,
But 3,
right.
2 rivalries and then your target game to finish the season. That's
Yeah, it's huge.
some tough schedule.
Everything's lined up. That offense is playing very well, and the defense has picked it up.
Let's go Rams.
Yeah.
Let's get
Gotta
it.
stop the triple option this week. We'll see.
I root for the Rams.
I know they exist.
I plead the 5th.
I know they exist.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Okay, with that, AJ, I'm going to. The Broncos won, so you got to take 30 seconds to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
But my 30 seconds would just be the same thing that I want to use for my Who Won the Week, which we already just talked about in the last segment as well. We're getting redundant here.
Okay, well then.
Go for his Who Won the Week.
Who won the week?
No, okay. The Buffs won the week because they got the ball rolling on the Mel Tucker era and are starting to usher in a new era of Colorado football. I think we really will look back on this weekend one day, and this week really starting with Alfano committing, the Buffs getting the win, the multiple commits after that. I think we really will look back on this one day and say that was when we started to see it turn into really, truly the Mel Tucker era. So the Buffs won the week. I know I already talked about it, but I'm talking about it again. Hell yeah, that was just hyping me up even more. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Oh, wow, I went a little over.
Yeah, well, I couldn't get the
Wait, I want
play.
Mad dash to the buzzer.
I want my 30 seconds back.
No,
I'm
that's not how
petitioning.
that works.
I just want to say
These are like wishes for a genie. Like
That-
once you've used it, you've used it.
I'm wishing for more wishes.
no one's going to complain about this. I just want to say the content that has been created by the people in this room and the people outside of this room I think is at an all-time high for what it's ever been at the history of this company. Adam, with the list, like the breakdown that you did, it's just really, really cool to look at what we've started to create here. And so if you haven't subscribed, I really think that you will not. Actually, I personally guarantee that you will not regret it if you subscribe, if you are a fan of any of these teams. It's been really cool to see us like take everything to another level that I personally didn't even know existed.
Amen.
And with that, use the promo code Allie at checkout to help your girl out.
Nice. Well done.
Thanks for
That was
selling that
perfect.
for me, Ryan.
That's a nice alley-oop you just threw down.
Hey,
Oh.
fun, nice.
I liked that one. That was my Twitter handle in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
You must have been so cool.
Yikes.
Yup. Just throwing it out there.
Genuine, you must have been so cool. I've never heard.
So cool.
All
I want
right.
to make that my text message ringtone. You must have been so cool.
Okay, Adam. With
Oh,
that.
am I up?
Yes, because AJ can't handle himself.
I love it because AJ, has a pretty, he's pretty picky when it comes to his humor. But when something hits, it really hits.
Okay, Adam. Go.
It's too good.
6 weeks ago, I sat in this very chair.
Oh,
This
wow.
very one. And I was laughed at because the person I nominated did not lead to wins in regular season games. Well, I stand here before you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and declare Nikola Jokic as the winner of this week for not hitting one, but 2 game winners at the buzzer, more or less at the buzzer, and single-handedly carrying the team to a victory, to a W. Equivalent of 2 walk-off home runs, game-winning goals, I don't know if there's a name for it, Hail Mary touchdowns. He had 2 of them in 1 week. It's easily Jokic.
Against 2 of his biggest rivals.
Thank you. Against 2 of his
I
biggest
mean,
rivals.
Embiid and
cannot
Cat are
include
like
that
the
analysis.
other guys, right?
It's
They are
like
most certainly the other guys,
Yeah.
not the
That's,
guys.
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
100.
they're 2 and 3.
There's no argument you could make against Jokic being the best center right now, which is just so cool. Right now, you have to wait till the next time they meet for you to be able to bring up any of those other 2 guys.
Oh, it feels so
Sit
good.
down and wait. Sit down and wait your turn.
All right, AJ. Go.
I mean, you're missing 25% of your team and you go 2-0 at home. I'm done.
Really?
No, honestly, like you go 9-4 against
That
one
was
of your
5 seconds.
one of your biggest rivals, and you blow them out against Matt Duchene, who everybody clearly doesn't like anymore. And I mean, everything just, it was a perfect confluence of events that they absolutely needed following a 5-game losing streak. It was a 100% the thing they needed, and they overcame all the injuries to do it.
Yeah, we sat here on this podcast with Rudo last week, and I was like, can they just go 2-2 in their next 4? Like, that would be huge. Well, they're 2-0 in their next 2, so.
Well, and
the
now,
rest is gravy.
a 5-game road trip into the Western Canada trip, which is always a death trap for them. They go 500 on that, and they have largely survived the injuries.
Yep. All right. Drew, do you have a Rockies one? Do you want to choose another
No, the
team?
Rockies did nothing this week. I've got one, though.
All right. Go.
Okay, I'm actually going to pick Will Barton for the winner of the
I like
week
this.
because you expect Jokic to be the best guy on the team, to do all the things, hit the game-winning shots. Welcome to the NBA. Will Barton has caught more hate than maybe any Denver athlete over the last several months. More disappointment.
More
Trade
than
that
Ian
guy.
Desmond?
I was going to
Oh,
say Desi.
Desmond doesn't count.
He is the Ian Desmond of the Nuggets.
And he emerged this week as a guy who now everybody wants to see as a part of that starting 5. He's a member of the core. He's been playing fantastic, inspired baseball. I love a player who can shove it in the face of his haters. Will Barton is shoving it in the face of his haters. A lot of people got to come out and say, we were wrong.
Love it. Love it, Drew.
Beautiful.
I
Will
think
Barton is a
Beautiful.
baseball player now.
Will
You
Bar-
did say he's playing some great baseball, but
I-
we're going to
that's fine.
forgive that. We're going to forgive it.
He might be. We don't know. we don't know.
Don't know.
true.
Can't
You guys
prove you're
threw Ian
wrong.
Desmond at me.
I imagine him laying down some great bunts.
He'd be
Really?
fantastic.
Yeah.
Could
He's a
get
good
down the-
bunter.
Yeah.
Doesn't strike me as a bunt.
No.
And,
He
No,
goes
no,
for the
no.
home run no matter the circumstance. Right around third, we
That
just
is
need the sack. But
exactly
no,
right.
man.
I'm not talking about his mentality. Just his body type looks like a guy in baseball who would lay down some good bunts.
I don't know how
no
to
one
contextualize
strike
this.
approach.
He's like Dexter Fowler.
Wait,
esque.
hold on. What body type makes a good bunter?
Like the lanky guy who doesn't have much power but is quick.
Can move that bat in and
How-
out with the long arms.
How many
and-
are there? A lot of baseball players that are 6'7", 190. Is that like a body type in the in
No.
baseball?
They're probably
No.
0.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys who are 6'7", but
But
they
it's
are
like Stanton and
yeah,
Judge.
Yeah,
They have some power behind them.
Yeah.
I don't think Barton has that much power.
I,
Maybe.
With
I could
this-
go for Stanton and Judge laying down bunts. I think that'd be entertaining.
Oh
that
my
would be
God.
entertaining.
It would be a lot of fun.
With this, last week we had a conversation of which Denver athlete would you want to see on each other's teams. Well, Bumpy Buffalo came through again with a question saying, thanks for the great content. I am really, really glad that you do this pod as it keeps me up to date across all across the state. I already asked about players, but now I'm curious, what GM or head coach would you take from another Denver team that would make your team better?
Oh no.
Wouldn't we all just take Connolly? Well, no, not you.
Yeah.
GM or head coach?
Oh, right. Michael Malone has a good head
you know what?
football.
If I for the
guy.
Nuggets, I would take Mel Tucker because they need some recruiting. There's only so much
Nice.
internal development you can get.
That's good.
Eventually, you need to get one of those number 1 guys.
I love it.
See, I'm taking Tim Connolly because the Avs badly need a new AGM for their AHL team because their internal development has been really poor. And so I'm going to take Tim Connolly and have
Slight downgrade in position there.
which is, you know what? That's cool.
That's all right.
You'll
It's
also
allowed.
you'll have the greatest job security. Craig Billington has been there for 10, 15 years now and has experienced almost no success at any level of his job and is wildly incompetent and continues to keep it. So he would never have to worry about a new job. He could just keep it forever, and anything that he accomplishes is more than what's been accomplished.
Wow.
Well,
Sold.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
I feel like the Nuggets' offense got exponentially better once they brought in Mike Malone. Is that fair to say?
They also brought in Nikola Jokic that
Yeah,
year, so
just
it could be one,
stop.
could be the other.
I already took Jokic on the Broncos. I can't take him again. Whoever has the best offense, the Broncos need him as their coach. So I'm going with Malone.
Okay, before we sign off, we've got some people really happy with on YouTube with Adam saying, here for the reading of the Gospel of Jokic. Gospel of Jokic according to Adam. Preach. May us all be present in his words. Amen.
Oh my God.
Those are all
Tried
different.
to tell you.
Graham, I'm telling you, man.
It's a cult.
Time to get Eric involved. Make a shirt.
Okay, with that, this is the Denver Sports Podcast. Be sure to leave a rating and ask us questions every week. Subscribe to thednvr.com with the promo code Allie. Go check out Breck Brews. Tweet at us if you're drinking some Breck Brews. And that's all we've got for you this week.